Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Bullets and Bourbon. I'm Matt Gunlock, and today we have my good friend JK on. Now, we've all heard of the Duskin match. It's an annual match that has so much meaning to the Special Forces community, which is organically spread to the civilian community. Each year that JK has been the match director, he adds a twist. So, before we get started talking about the match, JK, how have you been doing?
I've been doing pretty good, man. Just busy with work, life, my own shooting endeavors, and then obviously while we're here on the podcast today, building the Duskin for the 10th annual Duskin three gun for this year.
No, that's awesome, man. And I mean, just everything that you've been able to achieve in the time that you've been running that match, and then just in your own abilities in shooting, it's been a pretty incredible journey to watch. So no, kudos to you, and looking forward to seeing what the rest of the year turns up, and I'm looking forward to joining you out at the Duskin this year. But like I said before, many in the community know about the Duskin match, but not everybody knows about the story of Big Mike. So, can you elaborate on who Mike Duskin was and why he was so impactful in his respectful communities?
Yeah, sure. So Mike Duskin, he was a warrant officer. He passed away in October of 2012 in Wardak Province due to small arms fire. Um, and he was the Third Special Forces Group. So kind of Mike, he was previously on 3113, which was my old ODA before he went to 16. Um, so Mike, for one, he was larger than life in a lot of many different ways. Physically, especially, stood about 6'7", 6'8". I feel like sometimes he starts getting taller as the years go on.
Yeah. No,
um,
that's been the
and then,
running joke, and he like goes from 250 pounds, 350 pounds.
yeah, but so from talking to Maggie, his widow, she was like, no, he was 6'7" and 280 pounds without any kit on. And yeah, it's crazy because you can actually Google Mike, CW2 Mike Duskin on, Google, and there's a picture of him standing beside a camel, and it's not a baby camel, it's a full grown one, and he's just about as big as the camel. It's pretty crazy. Um, yeah, so he was a warrant officer in Third Special Forces Group, and so after he was killed, he even before that he had a huge impact on the community, right? Just a larger than life guy. His personality matched his physical size. With that, too, he was big into competitive shooting. He actually got both of his sons, um, um, Jake and Nate, into shooting with him. They always went with him, and he believed it made everyone better, or made him better at what he did.
Yeah.
As part of our job is to be able to shoot and then do it under pressure. And so he looked at competitive shooting, excellence builds competition, is what he used to tell his sons. And so he was always trying to get other Green Berets, other teammates and guys in competitive shooting because he saw the direct correlation that action shooting sports had into what we did, and it would make us better at our jobs, and then ultimately, create more lethality, and which relates into survivability when we're downrange. So he was always trying to do that. He was, always just very outspoken. And so when he passed, that just persona that he had and that his demeanor and the way he was always pushing everyone around him, it kind of continued because a year later, his teammates decided, hey, let's do a match in Mike's honor and call it the Duskin three gun on Fort Bragg at Range 65. So where that goes into is Range 65. He used to be an instructor out there and trained. So it kind of had a lot of deep meaning to the match too, right? It's Mike's old stomping ground where he used to train fellow Green Berets, kind of pass that knowledge down, not just knowledge, but that what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of just pushing them as well to become better and get better shooting stuff like that. And where he would also train in his spare time, after classes and stuff like that. So it's just so yeah, it kind of speaks volumes to the match and the fact that it's now still going on after 13 years. So, but for some doing the math, they're like, wait, how's this the 10th annual? Well, we had, a couple year hiatus where the match didn't happen. And it's kind of where I came in and picked up the torch.
No, no, and that's pretty awesome, man. Like one of the things that I really enjoyed one of the last times I was down there, just like meeting or not necessarily meeting because I already knew him, but getting to meet his old teammates, his old platoon leader or what squadron commander, what do you guys call it?
Oh yeah, the his ODA. Well, you had the ODA, and
Yeah.
then you had the company leadership too.
Yeah. Just meeting
It's
meeting some of those guys and hearing the stories, it's pretty impactful. Like the stuff that they did and the way they handled themselves, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of my Mike's old teammates were fellow teammates of mine, and just hearing those guys talk about Mike. So for me, he's just always been a legend within the community. I never knew Mike personally. Full disclosure on that, I did bump into him once, and the guy was pretty big. I'm not a small guy. I'm not the biggest either, but yeah, he was ginormous and dwarfed me.
You're a large
So
mammal, so knowing how large you are and then comparing it to Mike, it's like that dude must have been a giant.
yeah, he was a monster, man. Yeah, and that's been a cool thing over the since I've been able to run it. Clay Martin was one of his teammates.
Yep.
He was able to come out, I think last year or year before last. So
Yeah.
got to meet him.
That's when I
And there's a
met
lot of
him.
people too that I didn't even know that were intertwined. Like Colonel Haskell, he came out. He used to be our deputy commander for third group. He came out to the event 2 years ago,
He
which I later
delivered
found
the
out too.
speech, right? Or he
Yep,
did the closing ceremony.
yep, that's right. Which I later found out too through a story that he actually Mike punched him in the face one time. I don't know all the details, or I tell him, but yeah, and I think that kind of speaks to Mike too. He's just a no nonsense guy, man. He
Well,
was stern and believed, and
a couple years ago, I was teaching a class up here in Virginia, and one of the guys that came out happened to be not in the same ODA as Mike, but like in the battalion, or in group, and like he saw the Duskin sticker that I have on the back of my truck. He was like, "Do you know Mike Duskin?" I was like, "No, I don't know Mike personally. I know the match, and I know JK who runs the match, but he was one of the officers there at third group, and like." Just to see, it kind of goes back to one, our community in the shooting sports is relatively small, but then our military community is even smaller. So it's like you're just one person away of knowing another person.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I've a lot of times when I travel and going to shoot max, I always wear the t-shirts, right? And I think I was in the airport somewhere out in Phoenix, and I had someone approach me, and they're like, "Oh man, it's the Duskin 3 gun shirt," because they saw the back first, and then I heard him say that, and then I turned around and was like, "Hey, what do you know about that?" And then he's like, "Oh man," he's like, "Buddy of mine like watches it on YouTube, sees all the videos, like I was trying to figure out like how to get into it." And I was like, "Oh, kind of got to know somebody," and he's like, "Oh," and then it was kind of probing, like, "Well, who we got to talk to?" I was like, "I don't know, man," So it's kind of cool to see it, the reach it has. Just this kind of, not to veer off track, but one of my ambitions, not for personal ambitions or personal like gain, but when I took over the match, and really I would say this morphed into it the second year that I ran it. The first year, I just wanted to bring it back because I thought you'd come back. It's what got me into shooting sports. Donna Everly used to always say it. He was kind of the founder of the sponsorship side of it. She's like, "You're like the poster child for this match because it's what it got you into competitive shooting, and now you're the director, and it's like what Mike wanted, right? His fellow Green Berets to get into it." And man, I just lost train of thought. What was I talking about? I'm getting old.
You're talking about Donna said you were the poster child for the
Yeah,
match, and it got you
and
into the match,
yeah.
and how it spread. It's kind of spread.
Oh yeah. So yeah, thank you. This might happen quite a bit. This podcast, forgive me, quite a bit of booms going off on my head. So I'm sitting there and just talking about the reach of it, right? And so, oh yeah, the personal ambitions. So the first year, I was just overwhelmed, just trying to, just wanting to bring the match back, right?
Hmm.
And the second year, I finally, and I used to always say, even before I was bringing the Dustin back, like, man, it'd be cool to like run my own match one day and like have my own like major, And then the second year when I was out there, and I was like, all right, what am I going to do? And I was like, it kind of just dawned on me. I was like, dude, you have your own match. Like, I don't really look at it as mine. You need to like, hey,
It's
you
the
have a match.
community.
Yeah, I was like, you have a match. You can do whatever you want. Like, just pay tribute to Mike. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Like, it's got to have a certain flavor and feel, but you have it. And then I just had a blast with it. And then that's when I was really like, okay, my goal was to make this, if not one of the greatest shooting action matches, 3 on matches, not just in the country, but in the world. And not because I wanted it for my personal game, but the way I looked at it, it's what Mike deserved in his honor. It's what his family deserves, and what the guys of Third Group, they deserve to have that caliber of event, this national level or international level, like manicured, immaculate match ran in Mike's honor, his family's honor. Um, so with that, I think we've kind of achieved it because I was building the match for last year, and we had some Italian soft guys that were there doing uh, some cross training with the cephalic committee on Range 65. And they come in, they're like, "Hey, JK, like, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, we do this match every year. It's called the Duskin 3 gun." So, I'm building it. And they're like, "Wait, the Duskin 3 gun?" They're like, "That's here." And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Man," he's like, "we watch the videos on YouTube all the time." He's like, "We're actually building a match, like, based off of how it's done, very physical and all this stuff." And he's like, "In honor of one of our guys that passed out, passed out or passed away." So it was really cool to see how far it's reached. And like, you really have other soft units seeing that and then wanting to do something similar for their guys that were kind of like their own versions of Mike.
Well,
Because they said the same thing. Their guy was, he's huge, he was great, just larger than life. And they're like, "Yeah, man." You're like, so it's pretty cool. And I actually like cross talk with them. They've helped, they've sent me some like stage plans, kind of like help them out from like design stuff like that. So I think, to see now that it's not just have this big reach within the country, but literally have people, internationally seeing it on social media, YouTube, and it's not like anything official. It's just word of mouth and seeing shooters. So I think it's pretty cool.
well, I think
Uh,
what's really interesting is, if you just look, you already mentioned it, like there's another guy within the community that is starting a match for one of his guys that passed away. But think about all the matches that have been influenced and started because of the Duskin match. And matches that have also come and gone. It's pretty incredible. Like Task Force Dagger, that was one of them back in the day. I don't know if necessarily that match itself had its roots from Duskin, but it wouldn't surprise me if it did. It was one of those other just really physical, hard matches that paid tribute to, wounded and killed Green Berets in the soft community. You got Memorial 3 gun. That match wouldn't be around if it wasn't for the Duskin match. It's pretty incredible just seeing the growth of the sport just from one match, and you don't get that. You really don't get that from many other matches.
yeah, yeah. I don't think you do, because I mean, if you just look at the amount of people that are maybe or that are not maybe in the shooting community, and they can tie it back to like, hey, my first match was the Duskin.
Hmm.
I'm one of them. 2017, first match I ever shot. Um, and then 18, I shot it, and then it's here and there, and then finally, like 2020, I went from shooting 1 or 2 matches a year to shooting, 23, and the next year 34. And now I'm probably averaging about 40 matches a year.
Yeah.
So it's and with that, man, just I would say if someone asked me once, they're like, "How many new shooters do you think that match has generated just in the past, probably
Well,
like 5 or 6 years?"
that's what I was gonna just mention. The amount, like you are getting new people introduced every year to the shooting sports, and what you have over 200 competitors. Like we'll go with 40 or 50 of them are civilians that come out and shoot the match that are invite only, but then everybody else is, soft community. Like that's huge. There's no other match, like I would say the Marine Corps, we have our Marine Corps marksmanship competitions, but those are military ran matches, and we're constantly introducing new competitors to the shooting sports, and it grows. But here you're doing the same thing in a bigger fashion in a civilian construct, um, you know, and just introducing a whole entire community to something that we love. And
Oh yeah,
and there's no other match in the world that really does that.
yeah. I would say on average, yeah, because we have with staff included, there's 225 shooters.
Hmm.
Um, Competitors, you've got 180. Yep, about 40 to 45 of those are invitees. It's becoming now a lot more. Those invitees are old, former retired guys
Hmm.
that served with Mike and kind of founders of the match, stuff like that. But then, so that leaves you with about 140. Outside of that 140, you're probably getting around like a 30% of those, getting new shooters into the sport, which is pretty big. That's you're generating about 40, shooters, um, 40 to 45 shooters per year.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of guys. Like I had this 10-man detail for there were SWIC students, guys going, through Q course to be Green Berets, and they came out to help me out with the match. And I see them quite a bit out of Zoo City, other shooting matches. Then I'll see guys that I, saw at matches before, when I've run the Duskin, and I kind of see them now out around. So it's pretty cool to see
Yeah.
just that reach that it has. Just keep paying it forward, man. Just giving back what it gave to me.
Oh, absolutely. And now you've already mentioned that this is the 10th annual Duskin match. How does it make you feel that this match has been going on for as long as it has? And you know, it's the 10th annual from when the match first started in 2015. There was a short period where it kind of went away, but you were the guy who brought it back. So it's the 10th annual for the match.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, it started in 2013.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and then 19, 20, and 21 were like those years that it went away. 19 didn't have a lot of 2019 didn't have a lot of support, but then changed command for whatever reasons. And then 20 COVID hit.
Yep.
21 things were kind of coming back to normal, and then I came bebopping along in 21 and brought it back in 22. But um, yeah, it's obviously the 10th year we've ran it. Um, and I would say for as long as it was going on, man, I would say proud and honored. And it's kind of that's kind of weird to say that in a sense, but it's hard for me to differentiate like looking at the match objectively of just in general, and
Hmm.
not to look at it as I've been running it for the last 4 years, which no one's really been able to do that. I don't think anybody kind of wanted to do it. And I don't say that negatively. It's just a huge undertaking with your
Yeah.
regular job, your regular life. It's almost like taking on a second job, getting that thing up and running. And then to the scale at which I held myself to an accountable, like this is what I will provide, as a product out to, the family and then the guys. It's takes a lot of work. So I would say proud and honored, man. It just to keep that legacy going on Mike's behalf, and then seeing it going, it does makes me feel proud because it's like this is, you know, we talk about brotherhood and the community and everything like that. This is a true example of that brotherhood. Like seeing one of our guys that has passed, and though there's a disconnection because now you're looking at a whole new generation that doesn't even know him, but yet they're showing up year after year, um, and just wanting to compete and honor Mike every year. It just, yeah, it makes me feel proud and honored to be part of something like that, um, larger than myself, and just to see it continuing and realizing like, hey man, it's not just a slogan that we teach or that we say, and as it being a Green Beret, like brother of the camaraderie, like it's real. And I think the Duskin shows that.
One of the things that I love most about the match, it's how you still pay tribute to the three gun community by allowing like the civilian shooters and guys like myself, who've been shooting competitively for so long, but it allows us to get around your community, and it allows us to teach them what we know about marksmanship and then allows us to see how they shoot, and then we kind of blend the styles and we just all help each other out become better marksmen for it. That's one of the things I love about the match because competition does breed excellence, and in your marksmanship, uh just if if you think of it in terms tactically, the way you and I fight when I was in the military and you being in the military, You can get to the objective all you like, but if you can't hit anything while shooting, then what are you there for? It just improves those skills and those abilities, and it allows our community to help your community and vice versa. It
Yeah.
allows
Oh
us
yeah.
to honor somebody and honor the service members that are continuing to serve.
Oh yeah. And it's, and like you kind of said that, like bridging those two elements together. Um, like I remember my first Duskin match, and there's quite a few civilians were on my squad. They let me use their shotgun. They gave me equipment, stuff like that. And then they're kind of helping me out, and there's a lot of instances I'm trying to apply some military stuff, and I'm like, man, there's better ways to do this. And then I'm like,
Hmm.
man, I can do it this way, and it translates both. And you have to be able to be smart enough to differentiate, like, hey, where does this bleed over well, and where does it not?
Yep,
And then just even then, once I started shooting and then got outside competitively, just the civilian side, it really did. It helped out a lot. Like Thomas McCaskill, um, that guy was one of the first ones. Him and Dane Kovac took me under their back or backs, under their wings. When I started going out and shooting at Carolina Guns and Gear, because I showed up, I was like, man, I don't even know what division I'm in. I don't know what's going on. Like, just want to come here and shoot, have a good time. And they're like, all right, little buddy, you're with the right crew. Come on. And so it helped out well. And honestly, through competitive shooting, what I learned, I wish honestly I would have gotten into it way earlier in my career when I was a Green Beret
oh,
and just in the
absolutely.
military in general,
Yeah.
because the level at which it took me to be able to shoot was just astronomical. Like now, when I look at it, and I loved being able to be out at range 65 for as long as I did. Before I became a desk jockey in the last year and a half, because it allowed me to give that back to the younger guys and then show them what I've learned, not to show off, but to be like, hey man, look, there's a better way of doing some of these things that are faster, better, more accurate, and it's going to make you more lethal, and it's hopefully this saves you, down the line in the next fight that we take on.
Well, what I love about it in general, like what about your match, about competitive shooting sports in general, and the bleed over into the military. When we first started, you and I first started our careers in the military, we had to think about what we were doing when we were shooting. Footwork, all that kind of stuff, like clearing houses. Like we're being taught all these skills, but I wouldn't say it's second nature at that point. We're still thinking about everything that we do and every move that we take. And whenever we got good at shooting, whenever we, everything just started blending and clicking, we became so much more instinctual, which it carries over to that lethality. Like we don't even have to think what we're gonna do. It's second nature at this point, and that's really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's what it. One of the things I think competitive shooting allowed me to do is really look at what truly, in the Army we say proficient. If you're, P for proficient, T for trained,
Yep.
but it allowed me to really like understand, like, okay, man, this is what it really takes to get to that level where this is truly instinctual, and I don't have to think.
Hmm.
And I think competitive shooting allows you to see like that aspect of it, or what it takes to get there, and how it elevates, and translates well into the military, and with action shooting sports, and then shooting your primary and secondary weapon systems.
It also gives
Yeah,
you
I think
different ways to train. Like
yes, 100%.
it, like you don't always need bullets to train. Now, bullets are, you know, nice to have. But if you don't have the time to get out to the range or take your guys out to the range, you have so many different ways of training dry fire. Um, and then think about all the technology that's been designed around the shooting sports that can be carried over into the military. Just the different tools that are available now that have been driven by the competitive shooting sports and the demand for the military.
Yeah, I think they have now that VR training,
Hmm.
little game set that actually has like different pistols that you use, so the grip angle is kind of the same as what you're used to, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely another thing too. If you really look at, I tell guys, if you really look at how much time you're on range is spent actually firing,
Hmm.
there's so much more that goes on with manipulation of weapon systems and stuff like that. That dry firing is a huge tool, and like, and I really didn't even when I used to still dry fire, but I didn't really know what I was doing early on, like my career was like, okay, I'm just practicing prepping the trigger. And I remember dime washer drills, basic training going on up, which useful tools, yes, but then just like when you show up to the range, having intent and a purpose of why you're out there that day and like how you're going to structure your training or practice for that day. Um, and just looking at how like the shooting goes. But yeah, you don't need the ammo to do it. It's nice to have that feedback and reinforce what you've done. There's so many different things that the shooting community kind of brings in that I think really helps guys once they get into it.
So moving forward, we've probably hit some of this already, but for all the new competitors for the match, what guidance would you give them prior to undertaking such an event? And then additionally, what advice would you give to all the group guys participating in the event?
Oh man, well, if if it's a new competitor that's not military, what guidance I could give them is one, realize that the match is built for Special Forces, Green Berets, and just special for the special operations community. There's probably some things they'll encounter, they're just like, man, this is nuts. As far as what kind of weight you're expected to move or what you're expected to do in general while trying to shoot. Um, and just realize, hey, if don't hurt yourself. Just this is who this is geared for, and what so I would look at it in that aspect. Um, what I try to do in the match is I try to blend the both worlds. We kind of talked about that with the shooting community and military, right? So I try to make the match almost look at the stages as trying to create an environment or an immersion into some kind of scenario. When I'm actually building them, I'm like thinking like, okay, I had somebody going, hey man, well, last year, Jason Barlow was just in the armory, he kind of, I used him to QC me. The first year he helped me out a lot. I was like, hey man, this is kind of what I'm looking at doing, but now my goal is every year is just build everything and by, hey Jason, come out, check it out. This is what I'm doing here, here, here. And then he'll kind of almost he mentors me, honestly. He's like, hey, you might want to move this target a little bit this way because this is why it presents, this condition or just whatever have you. Um, and I always, the Randys, the rescue Randys are always in the event. And he's like, well, he's like, you could drag it here and then shoot and then drag it back. And that way it self resets. And I was like, well, that's dumb. Like if I was in combat, why am I going to drag this dude all around where I need to when I've already got into cover and now I'm going back to get someone else? I get why you do it. Hey, it saves time and stuff like that. But I look at it as it doesn't fit a scenario. It doesn't fit like, the narrative of what I'm trying to play out on the stage. So I try to basically make it very tactical in the sense, as much as I can. I don't try to, with the exception of jacking steel, that one's gonna you're gonna do some workouts, you're gonna do some bench presses, but everything else, that's what I try to create is just this environment, this situation that has some tactical implications of what you would have to perform and also shoot at the same time. So for the event, I would say, work out, be prepared. That's the biggest thing.
We're
And
what,
if you can't,
about 2 weeks out from the match, 3 weeks out from the match? So if you haven't started working out now, you're kind of
um,
fucked.
no, no, I mean, hey, every little bit helps. A good friend of mine, Matt Martini, just, and this is kind of, I think it translates well. Like, we're in a match and then, I was having a bad stage. And then honestly, like, as bad as it seems to say, I just kind of gave up, was like, all right, let's just get through the stage. Like, I'm just done. It was a dumpster fire. He was like, hey, dude, look, like, every percentage counts, every point counts. Like, it doesn't matter how bad you were before, like, finish it strong because those points are going to add up and you need them. So I would say the same thing for preparing. Even if you're 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, and like, man, I haven't done anything to prepare, like, do something now because it's still money in the bank and
Yeah,
it's going
just
to add
don't
up.
burn yourself out the week of the match.
Yeah, don't do that. But I mean, prior to it, I mean, obviously, man, just be prepared as you can. I would say when you train to shoot, do it under physical stress because very rarely will you be shooting without, huffing and puffing. Um, some stages will make you do that more than others. And then for all the group guys coming to the event, there's that physical side of it. We're kind of used to in the military, but then there's I add in the competitive shooting style to every match as well. And it's hard because this is what I dealt with when I first did the Duskin and then got into competitive shooting was just knowing, hey, just get through. the stage, right? Don't spend too much time on one target and just learn and just have fun. Don't get out there expecting anything out of yourself because at the end of the day, yes, you're going to be able to crush the physical part, but the shooting part is going to push you and bring things out, and it's going to show you like some holes and probably how you haven't trained, what you need to work on. So don't beat yourself up. Just have fun at the
Yeah.
same time because the shooting is going to be technical. It's going to be difficult. It's going to push you not so much where everyone's going to time out because to me that's you're not a good match director if 50-75% of your competitive field times out. And I build the match for the SF guys, but obviously competitive shooting it's a learning curve as well. I was one of the better shooters on my team, I remember, and then when I got into competitive shooting, I was like, okay, there's levels to this game. And so you know, I'd say for them, expectation management for the group guys coming to it. Have fun, learn as much as you can, and then just absorb it like a sponge, and then hopefully find some other matches out there and get involved, so that way everyone between the Duskin you can improve more.
And one of the things I'll say, and correct me if I'm wrong, JK. You know, for the group guys, like get in there with the civilian guys. Like they're going to be just as nervous to talk to you initially as you are of them and their abilities. But just pick their brains. Watch how they do stage
Yep.
planning and how they plan stuff. Um, they do have stuff to teach you, and then one thing I love about both communities is to the competitive shooters are JK doesn't invite just anybody. He invites good dudes. And that's an important factor of his decision on who he picks to come to the match. So everybody out there is a good dude that's willing to help and willing to also learn. And then same with the group guys. Like they're all good dudes who are at the top of their game with what they do. And it's just a blend of the two of the greatest communities out there. So I think everybody has something to learn from each other.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, and it sucks with you kind of hit on talking about the people I invite. That is one of the things I do. I look at, and this especially plays out into the staff. Um, I always want people coming to the match, my invitees, and then the same for staff that are good ambassadors for the sport. Now, if you're not getting an invite from me, it doesn't mean I don't think you're not a good ambassador. But
Yeah.
I'm hamstring one. I've got to balance how many people I get in the match, and then a lot now with everyone retiring the new Mike, it gets a little harder and harder to add new invitees because now those start outweighing the invitees. And it's like I can't not invite this guy that served with Mike or shot with Mike and was a fellow
Hmm.
teammate or friend or Green Beret.
Yep.
So they kind of take precedence just as active duty guys. Um, yeah, I look at that, and it's because I want to create this experience for the shooters, the group guys that are coming to get it. And it's just like actually one of the staff this year is from England. He's coming all the way over from
Oh,
England.
John Axe.
Yes, John Axe, and it's funny. He is one of my favorite ROs.
Yep.
I've seen him, Generation Three gun at Texas Championships before, and he came up to me at last year's Generation Three gun, and he's just a character, man. He always makes me laugh. He always keeps it light and fun, but he's a good RO too because he's stern to make sure it's fair for everyone.
Yep.
But he's not a dickhead,
No, no, I've
and
known
like
John for 9 years now. I shot with him my second major match ever.
yeah,
And like you said, he's just one of the funniest but most heartfelt guys that you'll meet.
yeah. And he came up to me Gen 3 gun and 'cause I was wearing my Duskin shirt and he knew who I was. And this is probably gonna sound my English accent's not as great as my Australian accent, but he's like, "Hey mate," he's like, "What's a bloke like me got to do to come to the Duskin?" He's like, "I'll work it. I know I'm never gonna get invited." He was like, "But if there's a chance, I'd like to come help." And then I was like, "John," I was like, "You are literally one of my favorite ROs." And I've always noticed that about him. Like, hey, he's always helping out, the shooters when they come up. And so with that, the invitees, like you kind of, mentioned before, that's what I look at, like inviting and then getting the staff on is like people that are really going to promote it and not turn you off. Because man, I've been to some matches in the country
Where the
and they are,
ROs just turn you off and you're just like, why am
yeah,
I
the
here?
match is phenomenal. The stages are great. And then it doesn't matter how you are as a match director, or whatever else. The staff literally make or break the match, and
Yeah.
in a lot of
Well,
cases. And
well, like,
if the stage is great, but the ROs are just complete assholes, you're like, I don't, this is not fun for me. Like, why am I here? Why? If you're acting like it's a burden for you to be doing this, then, and I get it, ROing is not easy. I've done it. It's like a thankless job, but like, you are the face of that match, and
mhm.
you are what's creating the experience for that competitor, and
Well, as Jason
that's
puts
important.
it, you're selling entertainment. Like, you are part of the reason why people are there. And if you are not going to be a positive influence, why are you even working it?
Yeah, yeah, it's a good way to look at it. Yeah, so for the Duskin, it's paramount in that with the invitees because these guys are going to be interacting with these guys who are trying to get into the sport, and it's important, mainly yes, to grow the sport, but it's like, hey man, these are some of America's finest, right? And this potentially has the ability to make them even better. So
Hmm.
why not bring them into the fold? And it keeps the sport that we love alive too. So it grows it in so many aspects.
Well, that's, I'll even talk about another match that you're familiar with, Generation GWAT, with what Mike Phillips does.
Yeah,
Saying,
it's a good one.
he adopted the same concept, Generation GWAT. They don't pay a thing. I don't, or they don't
No, they
pay
don't
any
pay
money.
anything.
They don't pay
No,
anything. All the guns and ammo is provided, and the ROs are seasoned ROs, and everybody is there just to help each other out. And
yeah, yeah, because I helped out the first year he did it. Last year,
I
I
was
was
there
gone
last year with
last year.
JB.
Yeah, last year I was gone, but I reached out to him a couple days ago. I was like, hey man, you need any help? So I'll be going out to help him this year with that. But that's an awesome event too. And then what I loved about it too is he held it that July. He holds it in July, which is about almost a month after the Duskin, and it's
So it's a
incredible amount of
continuation.
people. Yeah, you'll see a lot of people that went to the Duskin come out there and they're like, man. And I think it's great too because it's a good segue of getting more people into the sport. Because I know whenever I went, I was hooked immediately. And even though like the first couple of years, I only shot 2 or 3 matches a year, but I was always deployed. I was always gone in at halftime. But when I did, I figured out, hey, go and practice score. Okay, find this match here and there. And I just kind of went. Luckily, I met guys like Thomas McCaskill and Dane, Kovac, that kind of took me under the wing. And then from there, I just met more and more people. But I would have loved to have something like that set up to where after the Duskin, it's like, oh man, here's another like kind of segue to get into the sport where I could learn a lot more instead of just figuring it out on the fly. Um, but I would say guys are lucky too for there's a huge um, I would say concentration of like competitive shooting here in North Carolina around the Fort Bragg area. So there's kind of a luxury there too, because there's plenty of people around to kind of help get in, whether it's 3 gun, USPSA, you know, precision matches.
I think it's easy to say on the East Coast, North Carolina is kind of the mecca of the shooting sports for the East Coast. You're not going to really find a much better community of shooters than where you are in North Carolina.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I
I'd say
still,
Florida. Florida's a contender.
yeah, no, they absolutely are.
Yeah,
But
I spent all last summer, but I would say the depth of what you have here in North Carolina, yeah, it's pretty, there's a huge concentration.
in the amount of good shooters, like, I still claim North Carolina is kind of my home. I claim Zoo City is my home range of where I do the majority of my competitions. Like, that's one of the only places I'm willing to travel for local matches because they're just so good.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. You shooting their locals, the local matches there. It's like you're getting a major quality match, just about every time you go there. So it's definitely and I will say this, it's almost not a drawback. I don't say drawback. It's almost a con though. And the reason why, no pun intended for my last name, but the reason why I say that is because, and I figured this out when I started shooting there, is you do have so many good shooters that go there, whether it's 3 gun, USPSA, and then they have their falling steel match and stuff. But it's a little intimidating, I would say, because when you go there, you've got all these people that are at this such high level of shooting, right? Not just local level, but like they travel and shoot, nationally, like myself and a few others. And starting out there, it was kind of daunting because when I look at the scores, like, man, like, I'm just getting buried. And, it's hard to see some of those really how you're doing percentage wise as you're coming up stacked up to everyone else, which I say you should always shoot your own match, and
Hmm.
that's how you'll end up getting better, not chasing other people. But it can, when you do look at scores, it kind of, for some of these guys, they're probably like, oh man, like all the way down there. It's like, well, okay, look at the field that you're in. Where else are you going to get this depth of talent all concentrated in one area on, a daily basis, or every month that, at these matches. So, and then I started noticing that once I would get out, like start branching out, going shooting, I'm like, oh man, like I'm actually faring pretty well, outside of, our, bubble with here in North Carolina. And started doing pretty good. And I realized, hey, iron sharpens iron, right? Training
Hmm.
with people that are better than you is going to make you better. But in the beginning, it can be, kind of overwhelming because it's going to be hard to see it, until you start getting at that level.
Yep, you're absolutely right. Um, you mentioned something earlier that I wanted to hit on. The t-shirts. Every, there's two things, you know, that people remember that match by. And, obviously, was it a good match? Yes. But then the other underlying factor is the t-shirt. If it's not a good t-shirt, people will be pissed. What goes through your head whenever you come up with the concept for the t-shirt?
Man, so first off, when I brought this match back in 2022, and I let the cat out of the bag, like, I was like, hey, Dustin Freedom's coming back. I would say 90% of everyone, it wasn't like, man, you better make this match good. Everyone said, don't fuck up the t-shirt. And like, I think I have more pressure on myself to come up with a good t-shirt, and not just myself. There's quite a few people that are involved in that process. Very limited. I should say quite a few. They're very small circle of people. That thing's like top secret. Everyone always wants to know what it is, but they, till match day, you're
You're
not
not
figuring
gonna
out. Even
know.
on staff day, I'm like, hey, until they get here, the t-shirt stays under wraps. Like, the main match is when the cat gets out of the bag. But it was funny. Yeah, everyone, that's all they said wasn't. It was like, hey, don't mess up the t-shirt. So when we do the t-shirts, it's you're always just searching like, and it's you know, one, I don't think the unicorn will ever be beat.
No, I don't think it
It's
will.
just that is literally probably the best one ever. But I would say it's what I look for. There's not every year have I always been the final say so. But there's like the past 2 years, it's like okay, like we're doing that one. It's mainly like whenever I see it, I think of like busting out laughing or being like yes, like like it's got to elicit that type of response
Yep.
to where it's just like like oh man, that's awesome. If I look at them like okay, that's cool, I'm like that's not it. Move on.
Hmm.
You got to find something else. Like because it's that's what you're trying to get. You want to see the guys come up when they like get their t-shirt or something, like you just start laughing, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of what I look for is just starting it off. So right as soon as you get the match, man, you're already laughing, right? You're already like, okay, this is pretty cool, and that's kind of what we look for in it. There's I would say every year, which you've been involved in this process now for the past 3 years. You've helped out quite a bit with doing the photoshopping for some of the stuff. But I would say there's only like 4 people, 5 people that are in the circle for the t-shirt. Um, and it's not like, I think we all kind of are like, yes, okay, that's it. And there's a lot of crosstalk like you and I this year's, it was like, okay, I think that we were like, yeah, that's it. So it's not like very formal. I'm kind of saying it's formal for the listeners. It's not this formal process where like we all vote. It's just
No.
like if we're all laughing and we're like, yes, like okay, we all can agree this is the best one, and everyone's like, yeah, okay, we're gonna do it. But
Well,
it's got to give that response.
kind of like you, like whenever like you and I pitch ideas back and forth, and then I come up with it, it's like I hope I didn't fuck this up. Like it's stressful because you know the pressure of having a good design is, and it's like, man, I hope I didn't fuck this up. I hope this generates a response. And then it's like, once I send it to you, once I send that final product to you, and I get that response like, "Fuck yeah, that's it." It's like, all right, I'm good. I
Well, yeah,
got
and
the
even then, it's still stressful because, like,
because you
we've
don't have
all
the
told it.
reaction from the guys.
Yeah, we've all told a joke before, and no one laughs. We all think it's funny, And it's that same thing in like match day. It's like, all right, what's everyone going to think? And then you're like, okay, job accomplished, or everyone's like, all right, did a good job.
Yep.
Um, so it's pretty cool because then some of the guys who've been the match directors in the past, like TJ Zom, Ben Bland, Nate Schuler, some of those guys, when they're like, all right, it's kind of that rite of passage, right? They're like, all right, good job,
Hmm.
you did pretty good. So, but yeah, I think this, since we're on top of t-shirts this year, no, I'm not going to say what this one is. That'd be blasphemy. But I think this one is won't ever, nothing will ever top the uniform, but this one's pretty good. I think
Hmm.
it's in good fitting for the 10th annual and it being such a milestone in the match. The fact that this is the 10th time we've ran it. Um, I think it's fitting for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that the other idea, and I know why we didn't go with that other idea. Can I say what the other
No,
idea
no,
was?
no, because that one I think we still have, that one
Okay.
still I
There's
think we still
potential for future. Okay.
yeah, that one
We'll
we
leave it
just
alone.
there wasn't enough time. I don't think there's really enough time. We gotta start like that one will be right after this match is over, like come June 10th, like, all right, man, let's start working on this for next
Okay. All right.
year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because that's
no.
sort of like the donkey. Like a lot of people that don't know, the
Hmm.
donkey. So the year we did the bear riding what looks to be like Putin, um,
Looks
that
to be.
year was actually going to be the donkey, or is what I wanted. And Donna kind of was like, I don't know. She was like, it's kind of like political. And I was like, no, I was like, it's a donkey. Like Mike didn't stand for jackassery. Like, and he's always punched something that's like, it's the donkey. And she's like, ah. And I was like, fine, whatever. I was like, we'll go with the other one because it was equally funny. It
Hmm.
elicited that response between us. And I was like, but next year we're doing the donkey. And she was like, fine. And then sure enough, we did the donkey the very next year. And then there's the whole backstory with that, which I won't get into. But so that's why I say that. It's always like that's what a lot of people don't realize too, is a lot of stuff with this match, the ideas for next year are like generated while we're going through the process of now. Like I've already got two of the stage designs for next year just off of building this year's, which honestly everything I had planned for this year was what got generated for me building stages last year and been like, oh man, yeah, this would be cool. Like, well, it's too late. I'll just shelve it. Remember the idea, put it in my phone, come back to it. So yeah, don't spoil that for next year.
Won't do.
Potentially.
So every year you introduce something new to the match. Do you have any hints that you can give out for prior to the event, or you want to kind of keep everything behind closed doors?
Well, yeah, I always keep everything closed behind closed doors. It's funny because I have people hitting me up. They're like, man, hey, the rumor is you're gonna do 120 dumbbells this year and this and that. And even then, like, I'm like, hey, man, check it out. I never tell anybody what's going on in the match. Um, I want everyone to basically come to it blind and then just have this experience unfold in front of them. Because that's the way it was whenever I went. I didn't get to go walk the stages prior to, and I think it just adds to the elusivity, or I don't know this word,
I was thinking the same thing.
mystique. Yeah,
Yes.
mystique of the match. You know what I mean? And so
Hmm.
even when they tell me, I'm like, hey, look, like I never tell anybody what's going on. Like, I try to do everything in the match where it makes sense. And, with that being said, whatever you're hearing, it's not anything that directly came out of my mouth or what I plan on doing. And they're like, yeah, thanks for, I was like, so I can neither confirm nor deny what you heard is correct. And the other like, oh, thanks for the non-committal answer here. And I'm like, hey, like I'm basically telling you whatever you're hearing is something that someone else made up and it didn't come from me because I don't tell anybody anything. Um, I would say the only person that really knows what I'm doing would be Jason
Hmm.
Byrd. And
And
then even
he's not
then,
even shooting it.
yeah, and then even then, like he draws. I don't want to say Justin. I respect Jason's opinions 100% because the match director I am today because of him. And so yeah, I don't really give out hints what's going to be in the event prior. But I will say this: I do introduce something new every year. This year, I've taken into consideration of, I always listen to feedback. Always want to know. I don't care what I did well. I want to know what I could have improved on or did better for the competitor. Um, Last year, now it's funny because I hear sometimes people are like, "Hey, the guys are saying there was a lot of shotgun." Um, and it was kind of a lot for them because they're not used to like handling shotgun or whatever. My first year ever shooting Duskin, my shot, yeah, shotgun totally like, it took my lunch money.
Hmm.
But I was like, okay, I want to get better. And then now that's my favorite gun to shoot, 5 years later. Um, so with that, what I did with this year, I would say I'm giving the competitor the ability to play more to their strengths in certain areas with how I built the match. And I would say with the way the match is built this year, it's probably the best quality of stage designs I think I've been able to come up with yet. I've actually, at this point right now, I have two of the stages completely built. They were the ones I knew that were going to take me the longest time. So, like looking at like, okay, I'm in the military. I've got my primary job, also shoot competitively, do all this on the side. Like, okay, I've got to start these earlier because I know what it takes. I've seen, it's my fourth year doing it. So I knew what the kind of match I wanted to build this year. Kind of came up with ideas generally of last year, and then put them down. And even Jason came out was like, dude, this is. He was like, I'm actually kind of impressed. He was like, and coming from Jason, and a lot of people say every
That's
year, like,
huge
dude, like,
praise.
yeah. And so and I was, it was kind of like a proud son moment there. I was like, yes, because that's what I always. But he was like, Jason, and then there was stuff we had to fix and correct. Like I said, I always learn stuff from that man, dude. He is just a wizard when it comes to building stages, the stuff that he thinks about, the attention to detail. And a lot of it isn't just like, hey, making it great. It's little nuances like, hey, man, like this target array is great, but you need to shift it this way because you're setting a left-handed shooter up for failure.
Hmm.
And you're forcing him in a position that's super awkward where, you can put him in a potential predicament to, flag people, even though it's just because of, he's just a weirdo. He's a left-hand. Um, no offense to all my left-handers out there. Uh, but so yeah, and when he came out, he looked at him. He was like, good job. And I've tried to do this throughout the whole match. So I'd say that with this year, that's one of the biggest things. I say something new I've added. Now on the flip side, it's probably going to make a lot of people's heads hurt because now it's like there's more than one way to shoot some of these stages than were in the past. Not that they were basic; they were still very technical. There's very challenging target arrays and movements going here and there. But I'd say now it's another element of options to a certain extent. Um,
It goes back to
and
play to your strengths. What are you
yes,
good at?
yeah, and that's what I tried to do to help some of the guys out. And then yeah, so with that, and I've always loved option style matches. I think it makes you better because it makes you think, and then that kind of goes in that part of like preparation. Hey, and then if you sit there and go through this good mental process leading up to when you have to run the stage, to where you don't even have to think anymore. You can just execute your plan, even though there's multiple ways to shoot it. I just think it adds that complexity to a match and to a stage. It really helps out. Now, for maneuver shooters, I guess this kind of goes back to some of that guidance is like just don't go into analysis paralysis. Just figure out what's going to work best for you and then try to stick to that. Don't let all these options overwhelm you.
Yeah. And
But I don't,
and
there's only so much I could do though. I will say that. I would say out of the six stages that there are every year, there's four where there's some options at play for you to kind of play to your strengths. I would say one of them is a lot of options. That one it's probably my favorite stage of the whole match.
mhm.
And all of them are really, really great. But this one, I'm actually like, I would say this the one stage I'm referring to, and I'm not going to give you hints of what it is. But literally last year, I came up with the idea for it, and I had jacking steel and the car stage already built. And I was willing, I looked at Jason and was like, I'm ripping them down and I'm building that stage because I needed to flip flop. I needed jacking steel on the big stage and I needed that other stage on the other one. And Jason was like, you're retarded. He's like, you have two complete built stages. You are 2 weeks out from the match and you're about to scrap them for one. He's like, use that for next year. And I was like, all right, fine, fair enough. And then, so I'm happy with it the way it came out. it morphed a little bit from what I originally thought it was going to be. Um, but the final product that it sits out now, I'm like, man, this is pretty awesome. Yeah, it's going to be that one's yeah, it's going to blow some socks off, I think,
Hell yeah.
and a lot, figuratively and literally.
I can't wait. So you and Michelle are pretty much do all the admin planning, all the planning for the match at this point. What makes you two such a great team?
And
You
I
can't
would
fuck
say with
this up.
this,
She's standing right
yeah,
next
no,
to you.
she's standing right here looking at me. No, she was laughing too. I think so. Michelle, she's kind of behind the scenes, right? And I try to get her, get on here too. But she likes to stay behind the scenes. She doesn't want to speak about it. But we share a very deep, like, not just ambition, but I won't say so
Passion,
much pride, passion. There you go. Yeah, we both share this like deep passion for the match. And so for people that don't know Michelle, she's also the scholarship director for the Dustin Stevens Foundation. So she does all the stuff that Dustin Stevens Foundation gives out scholarships to kids every year for of families, military families, and so she does all that. And so she was coordinator, doing all that whenever we first met. She got involved in it, and then when Donna had to step away last year, she kind of picked up the torch for Donna. And so she already had that passion for just wanting to volunteer, give back, and then be a part of something that was bigger than herself, and not ask for anything back in return. Because everything she does is volunteer. She does, it's a nonprofit. There's no paid staff or anything. So I'd say we both just really we share that passion for, um, just volunteering, giving back, and being part of something else. And both of us all tied to Mike, right? Duskin Stevens Foundation. It's also for Riley Stevens within the Duskin three gun. So we have that, and then plus, I think the other thing that makes us a great team, we never argue. I think we've been in one argument in 3 or 4 years since we've been dating. So like, we get along great. We can pick and jab at each other. We can talk crap, and
I'm gonna say
so it's
this on
just
air. I'm gonna say this on air. Where's the ring?
all right. Pipe down, you.
I'm already pretty
um,
far down. I'm a midget, you remember?
yeah, yeah. So like we make it, and it's fun for us, man. Like it is genuinely overwhelming, but like in the afternoons, like I go home from work, and we're like, all right, let's, I'll be on my computer, she's on hers, and we're going back and forth. I'm trying to help her out, like, because this is just totally out of her realm. Other than like going to shooting matches with me, she doesn't understand the industry or whatever. So on her end, trying to coordinate the prize table and do all this, a lot of times, she kind of leans on me like, hey, what should I say here? Like, what is this thing? And then, I'm trying to feed her contacts and like help her out. So I would say we have fun doing it. We're passionate about it. We love it, and that's what makes it great. And I think it's a great bonding experience for us too, because it just brings together and tighter every year. And then, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, that's all the questions I really have planned. Um, but is there anything else you want to kind of leave the listeners with?
Um, well, I would say I will be running the Duskin next year. I don't know as of right now. I think next year will probably be my last year being able to run it, just because honestly, I've been extremely lucky to do this for the last four, and then more than likely, add a fifth year being the match director. But I do think it is a necessity for me to move on, just because of the way the match is, right? If you'd have told me in 2017 that I'd have been running this match, not just once, but this many times, I'd have told you, you're full of shit. But yet here I am. So I would say hopefully the next JK or just the next match director seems to JK, it's just the next match director, within our community um, is there and decides to step up once, I pass the torch and whoever that is. I did create a book to make sure that whenever I do move on, there's somebody that has something laid out in front of them to guide them on that way. And then obviously my phone number will be in there, and it's gonna be like, hey, look, this is, what I've built. This is here for you. And I'm also a resource for you to keep this going, because the last thing that I want to see This is mainly for any of my military guys are out there listening. They're within our community and third group. Um, Man, just step out there if you want to run it and you see that it's about to go away, like you're in a position to keep it going, like do it. We're kind of working things in the back corner, to ensure that it keeps on going because there are a lot of us that love it, but it takes somebody that wants to do it. It can't be tasked out and that you made to do it. You have to have a good understanding of wanting to do it. Like I said, because it takes up a lot of your time.
Hmm.
But above all else, I would say, too, what I want to leave you with is I'm excited to see everyone come out the next like 2.5 weeks. This year's match is going to be on par with everything. Like I said, every year I never cut it out to the year previous. I try to make it its own match in its own right. But I do really, really believe this one's going to go in there as a contender for one of the best years we've ever seen yet. And I cannot wait. And then, yes, the T-shirt will
I
be
was
just as monumental.
I was about to say that T-shirt is going to be pretty tight.
Yeah. And then for everyone, the listeners too, just for all the people that have a hand in this, obviously Matt helps out tremendously. Very grateful for him. Zoo City, Carolina Guns and Gear, Duskin Stevens Foundation, all those third group for allowing this event to happen. And I gotta say this is a disclaimer, probably should have said at the beginning, but in no way is anything I said during this a direct representation of the stance of the military. I am acting in my own accord.
I am not a
um,
contracting officer. I am a contractor.
yeah. Yeah, with that, man, just hey, I hope you guys are all getting prepared. And even if you don't have the time because life just gets in the way, I get it. Just come out and have fun.
Hell yeah.
And it will be. There's gonna be something for everyone out there. So I'm looking forward to it. There will be a lot of surprises and good ones. So looking forward to it and can't wait.
No, dude, I can't wait. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. I mean, shoot, it's been a while since I've seen a lot of people. I mean, I've kind of taken a step back from three gun. Been doing more of the gauntlet, TTG, and stuff like that. But no, this is going to be a good one to come back to. It, I'm excited, dude. I appreciate you having me out there, and I can't wait to see everybody and to all the people who are going to be out there. I look forward to seeing y'all. Um, I can't wait to see the expressions on everybody's faces when they see the T-shirt and just the stages. I think if Jason is like, bro, you got something here, be prepared to have a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I'll say this. He might deny it, but there was one array that I was pretty pumped about, and he even looked at me and was like, "I'm gonna have to steal that. Like, I'm gonna."
hell yes, hell yeah.
When I took that as a huge compliment, I was like, "All right, right on. Like, cool beans."
That's a win. That's a
Yeah,
fucking win.
yeah.
But to everybody that's not going and to everybody that's going, stay safe, have fun, and we all look forward to seeing you on the range. Have a good one.
All right, brother.